It all came down to this one single realization. He figured out that the only way to survive the most cutthroat era of pop music wasn't to fight the puppet masters. This is a story about a quiet revolution. It's about a man who walked away from superstardom at its absolute peak, only to come back decades later, not just relevant, but somehow more powerful than ever. It's all about how one of pop music's biggest manufactured products became one of its most authentic architects by weaponizing the one thing the industry could never, ever fake: his own unvarnished truth.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to walk through 6 phases of this incredible transformation. We'll kick things off with the outsider's master plan, then watch him struggle with the prison of fame and see how he was forged in normalcy. After that, we'll unpack his sincerity system, really get the cultural impact of the Astley Effect, and then finally, we'll bring it all back to your unvarnished truth. All right, let's dive in. Our story doesn't start on a stage under the bright lights. Nope, it starts deep inside the pop music machine. And this wasn't some lucky break. It was a master plan cooked up by an outsider who saw the system's cracks from the inside long before anyone even knew his name. And there it is. That's the core idea that just changes everything. See, back in the late 1980s, pop music was basically a conveyor belt. Artists were products, right? They were packaged and sold with a really short shelf life. And the thinking was you had to be louder, you had to be flashier, you had to fight for that spot in the limelight. Astley's big idea was the exact opposite. He got that real power wasn't about confronting the machine, but about building an internal foundation so strong, so authentic, that eventually the machine's strings would have nothing left to hold on to. I mean, just picture the scene. The stock Atkin-Waterman PWL studio. It was the hit factory of the time. You had aspiring stars literally lining up, just desperate for a shot. But then there's Rick Astley, this unassuming kid from the north of England, and he takes a totally different route. He's not there to perform, he's there to make tea and to learn. While everyone else was practicing their dance moves, Astley was doing this systematic exercise in what the source calls studio humility. He was just a quiet observer, soaking up every detail, figuring out how the gears and levers of the industry worked, all while staying totally invisible. He was playing the long game from day one.
And this slide right here, it gives a name to his entire philosophy, the Astley Effect. It's this core belief that your internal truth isn't some soft skill. No, it's your most lethal professional weapon. In a world of fakes and manufactured images, the most disruptive, most powerful thing you can possibly be is genuinely yourself. But to really get why he needed to forge this weapon, we have to understand the prison he was about to willingly walk into.
Of course, that meteoric rise came at a very high cost. He became a global phenomenon almost overnight, and the identity that came with it was a cage, a disposable persona designed by the industry for mass consumption, and it had very little to do with the person he actually was.
This slide really breaks down that fundamental friction perfectly. On one hand, you have a young guy with a working-class background, defined by what the source calls northern grit. His voice made him an insider. That rich, soulful mahogany baritone was undeniable, right? But his temperament, his nature, was that of an outsider. He just wasn't built for all the glitz and the games. So he had to deal with this soul-crushing weight of being a media punchline, a joke. And he realized that this pop puppet identity, it wasn't a personal failing, it was a systemic disease of the industry, one that was designed to chew people up and spit them out.
And this right here brilliantly shows just how radical his decision was. I mean, look at this timeline. In 1987, he explodes onto the scene. By '89, he is one of the biggest stars on the entire planet. And then just 4 years later, at the absolute height of his fame, at only 27 years old, he pulls off the Great Escape. He just stops. This wasn't a fade out or some fall from grace. It was a conscious, deliberate choice to blow up his own fame before it completely consumed him.
He was basically standing at a crossroads, looking at these 2 columns. On one side, you've got the pop puppet, manufactured, disposable, constantly seeking approval from an industry that honestly didn't care about him. On the other side, the sovereign artist, authentic, enduring, and self-validated. He made a choice that almost nobody in his position ever makes. He actively rejected that left column to spend years building a life based entirely on the principles of the right one, even if it meant totally disappearing from public view.
So this brings us to his missing years. And it is so crucial to understand this period wasn't about absence or failure. Not at all. It was an active, systematic process of construction. He was building an internal fortress brick by brick, unlearning that toxic habit of needing other people's approval. He was forging a brand new identity in the quiet, steady fires of a normal life.
And this is the philosophy that came out of that time, radical normalcy. It's such a fascinating and powerful concept. It's not passive. It's a disciplined strategy of staying so grounded in your own truth, focusing on your family, your life, your own integrity, that eventually your presence becomes undeniable, but on your own terms. It's the belief that if you stop performing a role, your true power will eventually shine through, stronger than any manufactured image could ever be.
And that's exactly why, when he did reemerge, it wasn't some desperate comeback. He wasn't chasing a nostalgia tour. His second act was a laboratory. He was testing a hypothesis. Could a sustainable career be built not on image, but on pure, unpretentious honesty? He was going after what the source calls unpretentious longevity, treating the stage not as a place to perform a fantasy, but as a place to experiment with what's real. And that required a whole new set of tools.
Okay, so how did he take these big ideas, radical normalcy, unpretentious longevity, and turn them into something tangible, something repeatable? Because, let's be honest, a philosophy is kind of useless without a daily practice to back it up. He needed an operating system for sincerity.
And this slide lays out his personal operating system perfectly. First up, the T-Boy protocol, which is a direct callback to how he started. It means embracing humility and self-deprecating humor not as a weakness, but as a tool to gain clarity and to see things as they really are. Second, the Relatability Audit, which is like a constant internal check to make sure his focus stayed sovereign, true to himself, not to some executive's agenda. And third, systematic de-escalation. Instead of fighting all the industry noise and media stories, he learned to just let the integrity of his work slowly dismantle it over time.
And here we go. This is the ultimate test of this whole system. The Rickroll meme could have been a source of just endless humiliation, the punchline that defined his entire legacy. But using his sincerity system, he didn't fight it, he de-escalated. He used the T-Boy protocol's humility. And then, when the time was right, he performed the ultimate relatability audit, showing up on a float in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and rickrolling the entire world live on TV. That was an act of pure sovereignty. He wasn't the victim of the meme, he was the master of the outcome. He took the joke and turned it into a global declaration of his unshakable authenticity. So, what was the long-term payoff for this whole radical approach? What did all this systematic sincerity actually accomplish? Well, it didn't just revive a career. It fundamentally redefined what a legend could even be in our modern digital age. It created a new kind of digital immortal.
This quote just perfectly captures the scale of his transformation. He started as a product of the industrial age model of stardom, basically a voice in a machine. He ended as an architect, someone who built a totally new model for a career, one with a moral conscience. He proved that longevity isn't about desperately chasing trends. It's about achieving a level of authenticity that makes you timeless. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it reframes his entire career as an act of, creative destruction. His legacy is all about dismantling an old, toxic myth, the myth that public success is all about crafting the perfect image. He replaced that lie with a new, much more powerful reality. The only thing that truly lasts is the unvarnished truth. So, at the end of the day, this isn't just a fascinating story about a pop star. This is a playbook. It's a guide for any of us who feel that pressure to perform, to be someone we're not, in our jobs, our creative work, or just our lives. It's about finding your own superpower in sincerity. So here are the core lessons. First, stop trying to perform a role. Stop faking the star, and focus on building the human. Your real power is directly tied to your willingness to be authentic, even when it feels vulnerable. And when you face criticism or you get turned into a punchline, your own personal meme, don't be a victim. Use your integrity to become the master of the outcome. And never, ever forget that sincerity isn't some passive weakness. It is a conscious, strategic choice.
So I want to leave you with a direct challenge. Just think about your own work, your own life for a second. Where are you putting on a show? What email, what meeting, what project are you overperforming on because you think it's what's expected of you, because it just feels safer than being real? And what do you think would happen if you just stopped?
This is such a powerful affirmation to hold on to. It completely reframes our vulnerabilities. You are not defined by the ways people might misunderstand you or mock you. You are defined by what you choose to build. And the strongest thing you can possibly build is a life, a career, based on your own truth.
And that is the ultimate takeaway from the Astley Effect. Integrity isn't just some moral high ground. It's the bedrock where truth actually lives. And your sincerity, your willingness to be unvarnished and real in a world that demands a performance, that is the code. That is the key that unlocks your own enduring greatness.